Hi, I'm Nathan. I love to optimize health, mindset, dopamine stimulation, and utilize business systems to grow businesses fast. Hi guys, welcome to another edition of the Bawsome podcast, where we talk about cool stuff related to business and all the precursors to it, like health, mindset, and business systems. So today we've got a really cool guest who is Scott Hartley, and he's written the book Hit the Inbox, book.com, that's his website. But he's all about email marketing, and email marketing is just so massive in business growth. So it's one of the key things that we love to talk about. So having an expert in this field is pretty cool. And welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Hey, glad to be here, Nathan.
Excellent. So tell us a bit about your background, mate, and what got you into specializing in email.
Yeah, so the business that I've got now, Hit the Inbox, is kind of my second business venture. Several years ago, way back in 2004, I started my first company, which was an IT business. And so everybody kept calling me and asking computer questions. Hey, can you fix this? Can you install this printer? You know, all that type of stuff. And so I thought, well, I might as well make a business out of it. And so I did. And really, obviously, entrepreneurs, know your craft, but there's a lot that you don't know about growing, starting, building, a business and everything that comes along with that. So I quickly got baptized by fire and, was figuring all those things out. And one of the things that I really fell in love with as I was, growing that company was marketing. And so I started using a CRM platform. At that time, it was known as Infusionsoft. It's now called Keep. And so I, started learning, marketing automation and building systems. And of course, part of that is the whole email marketing. And so I kind of got burnt out on technology by about 2018. And so whenever I stepped away from the business, I had other employees that kind of took over everything for me. And I was able to step away and really dive deep into marketing and helping other businesses with marketing strategy and marketing automation specifically. And then, of course, that email piece tied into that. And so I did that for probably about 3 years. And then I really found that I loved the whole email marketing piece. And so, helping people get their emails delivered, helping to write the copy, for emails. And so that's where I've really settled on Hit the Inbox, and I decided to write a book. And now I'm helping businesses all over the globe, leverage email marketing.
Awesome. And it is such a, what we found in our journey, email marketing is so powerful. But it's quite technical as well. There's a lot more to it than just hitting send to an email address, right?
Yeah.
Can you take us through, all the factors, all the steps that you have to consider? Because there's, it's quite a component. There's quite a lot of different components.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before we kind of dive into, that piece of it, though, is, I'd like your listeners, and you kind of spoke to this, how important is email to your business? Right? I mean, if you think about it, it's the lifeblood of most of our communication, whether it's one-to-one emails. So like you and I corresponded back and forth, for this podcast. You may have, clients that you're communicating with, team members. It's important that those emails get through. And
Right.
Then from a business growth perspective, like when you're running traffic, whether it's social media ads, organic Facebook posts, or you're doing direct mail or whatever, most of the time you're driving people to a landing page that has a form of some sort, whether it's a free form or it's an order form, but they're filling out a form. You're capturing their email address. How do you typically follow up with them?
Right.
By email, right? That's just kind of the name of the game. Now, here's something that I want to kind of like throw out there to kind of grab people's attention, because this is something that most people don't think about. If you were to go on Google right now, and for any of the businesses that you have, you could search, what's the average open rate for my industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to find a number somewhere between 15 and 25%.
Right.
That's going to be the average open rate. And
That's
if you
quite
look,
sad, isn't it?
yeah. Well, and then if you look in your CRM, your email marketing software, and you look at like, okay, what are my open rates? Most people are going to say, oh, okay, I'm in that 15 to 25%. And then that translates to, well, I'm doing pretty good. Google tells me 15 to 25. I'm at 17.3. I'm good, right?
Right.
No, you're not. You're average, because what you saw on Google says the average open rate.
Sure.
So my question to your listeners is, do you want an average business?
No, who does? No, thank you.
I mean, yeah, who really wants an average business?
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of the things that we'll talk about here today are going to be quite stunning to your audience. But one of the things that you have to really think about is, if you're only average, if you're not getting 80, 90% of your subscribers regularly engaging with your emails, how much money are you leaving on the table?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's massive if you really think about it. And so this is why you have to stop and think about, how important is email in my business to build and nurture those relationships, turn them into clients, and then even have your clients build that army of bringing referrals into you, where they're, sending out, emails and stuff on their own. So I wanted to kind of like preface, what we're going to talk about, because I don't want anybody to have an average business.
Right.
I want them to really leverage. And here's the thing, and I kind of alluded to this. The new numbers that you need to be hitting, and this is probably going to knock you on the floor, and I guarantee that some of your listeners are probably going to say, there's absolutely no way this is attainable, and I can prove different. But the new numbers that you need to have are 80% open rate, a 40% click rate.
Right.
80% open and 40% click.
Nice.
Mind blowing, right?
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. If you could achieve that. I mean, I think the best campaigns we've previously done would be in the sort of 40-45% range as far as open rate.
Yeah. And that seems really unattainable. I mean, again, most of your listeners, most businesses that I consult with, I tell them that, and they're like, how in the world am I supposed to get that? Because I've only got a 16% open rate, and my click rate, I'm lucky if it's 1% on my emails, right? And but I've got a number of clients that I've been working with for a short while that are consistently, not just periodically, consistently, month after month after month, getting 80, 90% open rates and 40+% click rates. It's phenomenal. And so it can happen. And of course, one of the objections that I get, is like, well, and I had this on a call 2 days ago. Somebody, well, I'm using this platform when I was on this other platform. And then when I tested a different one, like, I got better open rates. Like, is it the platform that I'm actually on right now? And I'm like, no. And I can say that definitively because I've got clients on that platform that are getting 80, 90% opens and 40+% clicks. So it's not the platform.
Right. So it's never the platform, it's the user, is it?
I won't say that it's never the platform. And I'm glad that you asked that question. So here's kind of the breakdown of where the responsibility lies on getting your emails delivered, because a lot of people don't think about this either. So there's basically 4 different factors about getting your emails delivered and actually interacted with. Okay. 80% of the responsibility for success with your email marketing lies on you and me as the sender. 80%. We have the most control over, do our emails actually get delivered, and will our recipients take action on our emails? So we have the bulk of the responsibility. The next 10% of the responsibility falls on your recipient. So the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right?
Right.
You can give them salt, which really entices them to drink. And that's kind of like the content of your email. But you still can't force somebody to open an email or to click on a link, right? So 10% of the responsibility is upon your subscriber. Like, what are they going to do? They get to make a decision. They get to make a choice. So that's 90% of the equation. So what's the other 10? That's split up. 5% is on your sending platform. So if you're using ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, Keep, Go High Level, whatever that you're using to send your emails, they have a little bit of responsibility as well, because there's a thing known as IP addresses. It's the highway that your emails are actually sent out over. And are they maintaining those well? Or do they have a lot of potholes in them, right? If there's a lot of potholes, that means your emails probably aren't going to get delivered because they're not liked for some reason. And so that responsibility is on your email software, your email provider. And then the final 5% is on your recipient's mailbox provider. That's Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo. What are they doing? What are their rules? Right now, Microsoft's being crazy stupid about their algorithms. Like, the majority of emails from most email marketing platforms, you can have all 95% of that equation 1,000% correct, and Microsoft will still put your email into the junk folder. And here's how bad it is. That tells you that the Microsoft team does not know what they're doing. Microsoft's own emails are going into the Microsoft junk folder.
That's one heck of a filtration system then, isn't it?
It tells you that somebody doesn't have something set right. And so if they don't have it set right for their own emails, you can't expect them to have it set right for the emails that you want to actually have, delivered to your recipients. And that's why it goes back to 10% on your recipient. So you need to be providing instruction to your people who have Microsoft hosted email addresses, Outlook.com, Hotmail.com, Office 365, and say, hey, guess what? I'm communicating with you, but chances are Microsoft is burying my emails in your junk folder. I need you to drag them out of there. I need you to go look for them, start engaging with them, and that will help overcome that. But again, that's on the recipient.
If they're not getting the emails, how would you get that message? Is that a verbal message or a phone message or an in-person message? Like, how would you actually tell them to get it out of the junk mail if they don't know?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, obviously you could do all those things that you just suggested. It could be, when you're talking to them, maybe you've got an onboarding call, maybe you're doing phone outreach or text outreach. But, a couple of easy things that you can do is, one is, and I've done this on mine, is on all of my pages that have forms, I have a box on the form itself that says, if you are using a Microsoft hosted email, go check your junk folder, because my email will land there. And then on the thank you page, I'm reminding them again. It's like, hey, thanks for opting in. Thanks for placing this order. By the way, I'm delivering something to you by email. Go check your junk folder, because that's probably where it's at if you're using a Microsoft hosted email address. So that's a simple way that you can just have that message right in front of them when they opt in.
Fantastic. When you're collecting those emails in the first place, do you put it through any verification process, or do you do that later, or
the landscape of bot attacks and the hackers and the spammers, it's getting increasingly worse. And so everybody really does need to have form protection on all of your forms. That way it can look, for anomalies that, would indicate that, hey, this is not a legit email address. It can look for, maybe it is a real email address, but the name, is a bunch of gobbledygook, or, you've got duplicates. I've seen, Julie and Julie for the first name, Julie for the last name, and then, samsmith87@gmail.com for the email address. That's not Julie that actually signed up, right? So if you've got really good form validation, it can prevent those bot attacks and prevent those emails from even getting into your database. And we offer that, in some of our services as well.
Are you familiar with Jot form?
Uh-huh.
Do they have any of those sort of functionalities within them?
I don't know if JotForm, I don't know that any form software, at least to my knowledge, has the built-in validation stuff.
Right.
Usually it requires a third party. I would suspect, though, that some of those platforms like JotForm or Typeform, if they don't have already, and I'm just not aware of it, but if they don't have it, soon they will be offering that, because it's becoming such a big problem.
Yeah. So what do you call that software that does that analysis, validation?
There's a lot of different, terms for that. It's form protection, software, bot protection. What we include in a couple of our plans is, basically the list validation and bot protection. So not only are we looking, is it a bot, but then we're looking, is it a valid email address? If everything passes that it's not a bot, is this an email address? Is the mailbox full? That's something that we can check too. Is the mailbox full? Because if it's not, your email is going to bounce. It's not going to get through. So there's a lot of, things that you can do on those forms.
So we put all our emails through a validation software. So after it's been collected, do you advise on doing it while it's in the, using that software that you referred to while it's being entered in, or can you do it after and do the email validation? Have you got any thoughts on the best time and software kind of to access for that?
Yeah, good question. So most of your validation is going to occur after the form's been submitted, because there's not a way to really validate it as it's being typed.
Right.
So it is going to be happening after the form's been submitted. But depending on the software, the tool that you're using, then, it can do that validation check pretty quickly. And then I generally recommend that you put at least a 2-minute delay before an email gets sent out, so that it can complete that validation check. And that way, if something comes back that it's an anomaly or not good, you're not facing the risk of a bounce or, a potential spam complaint or something like that.
Yeah, fantastic. So back to the 80%, how we can get to 80% and the factors that we can consider, we should consider to get an 80% inbox record. Can you talk about it's just the overview of the different things that we got to take into consideration to achieve those sort of results?
Sure. So, the big thing last year in 2024 that probably most everybody, is aware of by now is you have to have authentication. You have to have authentication properly and fully configured for every platform from which you send email. So if you're using Google Workspace or Office 365 for one-to-one communications, that software needs to be fully authenticated. And what I've found is that about 6 out of 10 do not have their one-to-one email software fully authenticated. It's partially, but it's not fully authenticated. Secondly, obviously, if you're using a bulk email marketing software like ActiveCampaign, Keep, MailChimp, Go High Level, that has to be authenticated. If you've got a membership site and you're sending emails from your membership site, that needs to be authenticated. If you're using an e-commerce platform like Shopify, that needs to be authenticated. So you have to make sure that all of the authentication is in place. Now, what do I mean by that? So I mentioned earlier the email marketing highway. Just like in any country, if you're driving on the roadways, you typically have to have 3 pieces of paper to allow you to legally drive on the highway: driver's license, proof of insurance, and registration, right? You need 3 identifiers to legally have your emails floating down the email marketing highway. And that's the authentication. And we won't go technical, but it's DKIM, SPF, and DMARC. You have to have all 3 of those properly and fully configured, so that the mailbox providers, when they inspect your email messages, when they pull them over and say, hey, wait a minute, you're on your way to your destination, are you legal? They want to see, are all three of those things in place? If they are, great. Your email gets to go on. If it doesn't, your email's not going to make it.
Right. Fantastic. And are there others as well in that 80%? Other factors to take into consideration?
Sure. So authentication is just a very small piece of it, but it's a very important piece. 2025 is the year of engagement. If you take nothing else away from this podcast, take that. 2025 is the year of engagement. We cannot, the mailbox providers have simply set their foot down and said, you cannot email like it's 1999. Right. You can't even email like it's 2023. The rules have changed that much. So it used to be that, hey, somebody opted into my list. Great. I can email them until they buy, die, or unsubscribe. Right? No longer. No longer. The mailbox providers, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo will not allow that. They are looking for people who are engaging with your emails. Now, what is engagement? It's not an open. Now, I know that sounds contradictory. You're saying, Scott, you tell me I have to have an 80% open rate, but an open is not engagement. It is, but it's not a great form of engagement. As a matter of fact, in late 2024, Google updated their best practices that says we do not track opens. 5 simple words. So what that means is that if you get in trouble and your domain reputation takes a nosedive, to get your reputation back, you could send 10 bazillion emails and everybody opens them. And it's not going to make one iota of a difference in improving your domain reputation. But opens are important. They are a decent metric that we have to look at in the totality of everything. So what is an engagement? The mailbox providers, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo, are looking for your subscribers to regularly click and reply to your emails. Okay. So that requires a shift, right?
So how does that incorporate things like newsletters when you don't expect a response? How do you still, you just sending, or should we be expecting a response in a newsletter?
Yeah. So that leads to, a shift. We have to change the way we're thinking about doing email marketing. So on the back cover of my book, I have as one of my bullet points, why you should ditch the email newsletter and what to send instead. Because the traditional newsletter, the way that we think of it is like, hey, I've got this newsletter. I see it. It has newsletter in the subject line. And then I open it up and I've got 3, 4, 5 articles and 7 different links and, 8 different pictures that, are filling up that email. Now, marketing very well. A confused mind doesn't
take action. Yeah.
Doesn't take action. So when they see an email newsletter with 5 different options, 7 different links, and 4 different pretty pictures, people get overwhelmed. And they're like, I don't know what I'm interested in. And so most times they do nothing. So they don't click and they don't reply. Or they're like, oh, I like this lead article right here. Oh, article number 2 looks pretty good. Let me go check out article 1. So they click the link. Now they're out of your email. They don't see it. They're over on the website or the blog or whatever. And guess what? They're reading your blog. Now the phone rings. Somebody comes into their office. Kids call, whatever. They never get back to the email. They don't go to article number 2. They've only gone to article 1. And so everything else in that email is basically useless. Now, that's not to say that all newsletters are bad, but there's a better way to do newsletters. And it's called frequency. Many people that I talk to, I tell them, you need to be emailing your list at least once a week, preferably more. Because the more you email, the more money you're going to make, right? Yeah. But you need to email once a week. And I get so much pushback. Oh, I don't know what I'd send. I don't have time to write 4 emails. You have a newsletter that you send out once a month and it's got 4 articles in it.
Yeah.
Break that up. 4 emails, 1 email a week. Ta-da! Now you've got a weekly email, and now you're giving people a reason to click. And instead of just having the click, change your call to action. Hey, reply to this email and let me know what you think.
Right. And so you obviously need team members to be able to respond to that response, right? To keep the engagement high.
Yeah.
So that's I imagine pretty important to structure that into your plan if you're trying to generate that response.
Yeah. You don't want to have, a one-way conversation, because if you're asking people to reply and they don't get a response back, guess what? They're not going to be replying anymore in the future, and that's going to work against you.
So it's just like any social media marketing, really. I assume from that perspective, you've got to engage and continue that conversation to build relationships, just like in the real world, right?
Exactly. And that's the name of the game, is building the relationship. Yes, we want to drive revenue with our list. We want to make money. That's what we're all in business for. But ultimately, think of the people on your list as somebody that you're building a relationship with, that you're getting to know, and they're getting to know you. If you think of them that way, it makes doing email marketing so much easier and so much more fun.
Absolutely. Scott, what about the actual content that you're sending? Obviously, that's going to be pretty key for them to want to open future emails as well. That must have a pretty major determining factor. Would that be right? Yeah.
So, we talked earlier that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But you can give a horse salt. Okay. The salt is your content, and it starts with your subject line. Are you making the subject line curiosity driven? Are you making them intrigued? Like, oh, I got to find out what's in this email, right? If your subject line just says Mark's newsletter, okay, I'm not interested.
I'm snoring already. Yeah,
exactly. So you want to make it something that's going to grab their attention and say, oh, I got to find out what's inside this thing. Then once they open it, you've got to grab them. You've got basically 3 to 5 seconds to get somebody's attention and to keep them reading. And the best way to do that is through stories, whether it's one of your own, whether it's, one of, from an experience that you had, or whatever that it is. It can be a made up story, but if you can grab their attention and then you tie that into whatever the concept is of your email, and then ultimately the call to action, now they're going to be reading the whole thing through. And I've written several different stories. One that I sent last week talked about when, my house got broken into. I came home for lunch one day because I had my IT business, came home for lunch one day, walked into my bedroom, and stuff was thrown all over the floor. And I was like, what in the world happened? I looked over and my window was open. And so, I used that story, and then I tied it into the topic of that email. So you definitely want to make it engaging and be like, and just look through your emails. This is the best way to do it. What are the emails that you receive that you enjoy reading? That you actually read. That you actually read, and then model that.
Yep. I have to say, I can tell by just the conversation today, you're an absolute genius at that, because even as you've been talking today, you've been using a hook, and you've introduced the subjects, and you've dangled a little bit of bait there, and you've got us sort of on the edge of our seat. So you do that quite clearly in practice, because and you sort of built the suspense, and it's like, I want to know, so you just tell me the answer, right?
And trust me, and some of your listeners, maybe like, there's no way I could write story-based email. I'm not a storyteller, I blah, blah, blah. I'm a very factual person. I am a type A, left-brained person. Like, just give me the facts, let me do it. I've had to hone this skill over many years to be able to start to be effective in, sharing these types of stories and hooks and things like that to grab people's attention. Because if it were just up to me, you and I would just be sitting here talking about, here's the 5 things that you need to do to get your authentication in place. And, here's the numbers that you need to meet, and blah, 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 and it would be boring as all get out.
Yeah, true. So what about cold emailing? Does that have, if you're just scraping, for example, if you're scraping emails off, email addresses off the internet through LinkedIn or whatever other processes that we do you have any differences in the way you approach those sort of emails that you're going to be sending to them?
So the question I would ask is, do you like being in jail?
No. I wouldn't.
Nobody likes being in jail.
I've been there, but don't think so. Don't think I would.
Nothing that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of cold emailing. And the mailbox providers, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo, are not either. That's why email marketing is getting more difficult. Mm-hmm. Because marketers screw up everything. You give them an inch and they'll take a mile, right?
Absolutely.
And they find the little loopholes. I mean, it's just like, hey, here's what we can do. Oh, let's take it to this next level. And then now it brings a lot of, negative response, and, rules have to be set. So the reason I say, do you like being in jail, is because if you're doing cold email, you're at risk for a lot of bounces, bad emails that are coming through wherever you're getting your list. And then the emails that do get through, then you're getting, a lot of spam complaints. Mm-hmm. And the mailbox providers, once you hit 3 spam complaints for every 1,000 emails that you send, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Wow.
And if you keep that up, your domain reputation really takes a nosedive, and then you can't email from that domain anymore. So a lot of cold emailers, they figured out a loophole. It's like, oh, well, I'll just buy 25, domains and set up 5 email addresses at, each of those domains. Now I've got 125 email addresses that I can send from, blah, 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 blah. They're always figuring out how to game the system. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here thinking, if you would put your energy and time into marketing strategies based on timeless principles that we know work, you'll get much better results. I saw a conversation in a Facebook group that I'm a part of. It's been a few weeks ago now. And somebody was offering a cold email service and said that they would send out 10,000 emails a month for you. And I forget, how many booked calls that they promised out of that. It was a really small number. But somebody else in that group chimed in and they said, we send 15,000 cold emails a day, and we get 6 to 8 booked calls from those 15,000 emails a day. And I'm sitting here, I pulled out my calculator and I was like, okay, 6 divided by 15,000 is 0.0004.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then the number that he did not share, and this is important, the number he didn't share, how many clients did he close from those 6 to 8 calls?
Sure.
The juice, in my opinion, is not worth the squeeze. And here's the thing. If you're cold emailing 15,000 people a day, you're ticking off probably half of them at minimum. Mm-hmm. You're going to go through a list wherever you're getting it really quickly. And then what are you going to do? Mm.
It's interesting the amount of spam emails we all get, right? So clearly these guys are good at getting into the inbox still with ridiculous levels of and the emails are all the same and they're all so boring. And I just think when I'm receiving them, it's like, come on, just do something better. Like just say something that will actually get some engagement, because they've probably gone to all this trouble of doing all the techniques that you've sort of spoken to to get into that inbox, which is amazing in the first place, that they're actually in based on the crap that they're serving you up, that actually arrives in your inbox. You just think, look, if you could just tweak that message a little bit and grab some, interest instead of all the cut and paste. They must be getting their email messages from some school that's teaching bulk email, cold emailing, because it's all the same and it's all boring.
Well, and the thing is, shotgun approach to marketing. It'll work. It'll generate results. But you're going to get much better results when you have laser focused marketing.
Absolutely.
And so why would you want to waste the time and energy and money? Because email is not free. And even if it didn't cost you a dime literally for the emails itself, you're burning relationship capital.
Sure. Yeah. Good way of looking at it. Yeah. What about sending videos? Like we use a bit of software that automates. I think I was talking to you about this the other day. We use some software that AI changes the name of the person. And so you're saying, hi, John, hi, Louise, and it changes the name. And so you send more of a personalized video. Is there any email software out there that, or is there a way of actually having a video play within an email rather than sending them off to another page to open that email? Have you come across it?
There's not a way to truly embed an email or a video into an email, just because there's too much risk for malicious activity, that could be, coded into that. And then of course, just the size of a video as well. Deliverability, it just doesn't make sense. So most people, they might make a GIF image of, the video, or, just have a static image. And then of course, people click it and go watch it, wherever. Using video though, is a great strategy. You want to know how to get clicks up? Is if you don't spill the secrets in the copy of the email, and people literally have to go watch the video to hear what you have to say. And if you've created the teaser copy compelling enough, they're going to be like, oh my goodness, what's Nathan got to say? I got to go watch this video. Click. Guess what? You've got a high form of engagement right there.
Fantastic. Yeah. So you recommend putting the hook within the written script, and then the whole point of that written script will be to direct them to the video to up the engagement level through the video.
Yep. And I've done this, several times, in different things. I think, it's been a week or two ago that I sent an email to my list, and I had some nasty people on my list. They reported some emails as spam, despite the fact that I let them know that I was going to be making an offer to my list, despite the fact that every single one of the offer emails had not one, not two, but had 3 links in it to where they could unsubscribe. 3 unsubscribe links, but yet they went and reported it as spam. So I created a video, and I got a nasty response, a very passive aggressive response from one of the people that didn't like, the email for whatever reason. And so I did a video, and I said, I got this angry response from a subscriber. Here's how I responded. And then I recorded a video, and then, I posted it. Well, guess what? Most people are going to be curious, how did Scott respond? And so, they're going to go click that link in that, to watch that video to find out.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, that's great. So do you recommend it as a way of getting YouTube views up, to send people to YouTube channel?
You can do that. Now, one thing you do have to be cautious of is whenever you're driving traffic to a site that you don't own and control, sometimes those sites can appear on block lists, and that can prevent your emails from getting delivered. So sometimes Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, those can all appear on block list. And if at the time that you send your email, it happens to be on a block list, and Google inspects your email, for example, and they see you've got a link and that site's on a block list, they may say, nope, we're not putting it in the inbox. We're going to put it into the junk folder. We're going to put it somewhere else. So you have to be kind of careful. My best practice, and I don't know how YouTube's algorithms and everything work, my best practice is put the video on a page on your website, and you can embed the YouTube video on your website. And if that allows you to get, view counts, up on YouTube, even though it's not actually on YouTube, that would be a great strategy to leverage.
Nice. So that would be to send them to your website would be the preferred method rather than to YouTube.
Yeah, because you can control and make sure your website is not on a block list.
Fantastic. You can actually control that, can you? You can unblock it.
You can definitely keep an eye on it. And then, of course, if you're using a very reliable web hosting provider like WP Engine, your website's going to be on a server that generally is not going to be on a block list. And if it does happen to get on one, you could always reach out to your web hosting provider and they can see what they can do to, to make that change for you.
Is there a way of checking that, Scott, to see if your website's on the block list?
Yeah. So if you go to a website like mxtoolbox.com, then you can go and type in your domain name, whatever that is. So like I could type in hittheinboxbook.com, and then you want to choose the tool that says blacklist check, and you just run that and it'll tell you, no block list, or, oh yeah, you're on 3 block lists.
Wow. Awesome.
Yep.
Oh, that's a great little tip in itself. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Great. So, so how do you work with people? What structure do you do? Do you are you employed, as a subcontractor, or you offer services? Tell us a bit more about how you help people with email.
Sure. The first way is, obviously I recommend everybody get a copy of my book, hittheinboxbook.com. It's a short 76-page book that's packed with the 4 fundamentals that you need to make sure that your emails get delivered. That's going to be, kind of the foundation of everything. And then secondly, the starting point, just like, if you're on a sports team, at a high school, before the actual athletic season begins, what do all the athletes have to go get? They have to go get a physical. They got to get checked out. Are you, what shape are you in? Is there any potential for injury? That type of thing. So my first starting point for the majority of my clients is requesting an audit. So hittheinboxaudit.com. And that's where, if you're using one of the 10 platforms that our analysis tools can connect to, we can then find out, like, what's your email health score? What's your engagement look like? What's your domain reputation? What are the things that matter? What are the things that are helping you get to the inbox? What are the things that are preventing you from getting to the inbox? Now we've done this physical assessment, of your email setup, and now we can make recommendations. Okay, here's what we need to do. Do we need to do open heart surgery? Are you in that bad a shape that you've got some really serious issues? Or, okay, you're not, your artery's kind of clogged, but we can do a few things, and, we can get that up to speed without any major surgery. Like, we can then take the appropriate next steps to help you get up to that 80% open, 40% click rate consistently.
Nice. Excellent. So, and how can our listeners reach out to you and find you for your help?
Sure. So the best way, obviously, is hittheinboxbook.com, hittheinboxaudit.com. And then I do have a free community on Facebook that I'm in there multiple times a week. I'm doing Facebook Lives. I'm sharing information. I'm answering questions. So people can come in there and post their challenges and issues with email marketing, and happy to give some feedback on that. That one is hittheinboxcommunity.com. Does anybody notice the theme here? It's all hit the inbox, and then what is it? So hit the inbox book, hit the inbox audit, hit the inbox community, ABC, right?
You're the inbox man. I think you've got it all covered there, Scott. Beautiful. Excellent. Well, thank you for all that, mate. There's some, I've certainly, I've got a page full of notes myself, so I'll be handing this over to the team, but I think we might have to have a chat going forwards as well. Further chats, but that's fantastic. As I say, the whole email thing, you think is on the surface before you actually get into it, you think, okay, send, done.
Yeah,
that's
exactly
all I need to know. But as we've discovered, there is so much to it, and having a bit of someone in the know is pretty valuable to have on your team. So yeah, hopefully that you get a bit of bit of action out of today, because it's just such an important part of building a business and the marketing side of things. It's just can't express that enough. I mean, having your own list as well to start. I mean, we haven't really touched on that much today, but you know, building a list. I mean, we focus on lists in every business that I'm involved in. It's just the most crucial thing. In fact, I was actually kicked off LinkedIn like 2 weeks ago.
Oh wow!
Which was a bit stressful. You know, when you're active and you rely on and who knows why? Like they'll have, you know, you've contravened the community guidelines. Okay, tell me exactly what I've done so I don't do it again. But they never do. So,
but with your list, you actually own that, and you can, you know, control that. And when you go to sell a company, like the biggest asset that you have is your list, you know, and if it's a buying list, even better.
So if you've got that list, that's super important, so that you control it. No one can take it off you. But that list without your skill set is kind of a waste of time as well. So you know, if you've got this amazing list of customers, but you can't communicate, you can't send a message out to them, and it doesn't get through the spam blockers and everything else, then that's kind of still a waste of time. So you need that list, and you need the skill set that goes with it to obviously get the value out of that list. Otherwise, you know, it's kind of a waste of time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. The landscape of email has so drastically changed in the last 6 months, especially, and it's going to get, you know, even more challenging. But here's the thing: most business owners will not step up and do what's necessary to take advantage of the opportunity that lies in front of them.
Always.
So the few business owners who are listening to our conversation today, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to lean into email marketing. I want to drive revenue with my email list. I want to grow it. I want to build those relationships, and I want to extract money from my list. The few business owners who do the work necessary to abide by the rules and the best practices of Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo, those are going to be the ones who reap the rewards, while everybody else is scrambling to find the next shiny object and getting shut down by Facebook and kicked off of LinkedIn and all of that other stuff. And they're going to be like, how do I make payroll this week? Yeah,
absolutely. And out of any change, that's where the opportunity is. So, you know, as you say, a few people will be into it. The majority of it'll just go over into the too hard basket, straight over people's head. But also not knowing there's people like yourself out there that can guide them, because most people have no idea. You know, in business, most people are too busy to actually spend any time on marketing. And, you know, like I always advocate, I like to spend a minimum of 3 hours a day on every business, on pure lead growth, business growth activities. So email marketing is absolutely fantastic part of that journey. So awesome, Scott. Thank you, mate. Thanks so much for being here and sharing your pearls of wisdom. Absolutely awesome, because you don't hear about half of that stuff, you know, from mainstream. So thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, pleasure. Awesome. Well, stay tuned for another awesome podcast, and we will connect soon. Thanks again, guys. See you soon.
Well, that was awesome. Keep optimizing your health, mindset, and business. Be awesome and make business awesome.